Hello, welcome to another episode of Varsity360. I'm Columbian sports editor Micah Rice, joined this week by Tim Martinez. And despite the weather you might have endured this past weekend, spring is officially here. And so we are here this week to talk some spring sports, what we like about covering certain events, what challenges certain events bring, and also some of the teams and players to watch as the baseball, softball, track and field, golf, tennis, soccer athletes hit the fields around Southwest Washington. But before we get into that, number one, a special thank you to First Pacific Financial for continuing to support this show. We're coming to you from their studio in downtown Vancouver. And also a plug, be sure to tune in next week where we will be revealing the all-region boys and girls basketball teams. You'll get your first look at those teams here on Varsity360. But Tim, in spite of the weather, spring sports are here in force.
Spring sports are here, and I think spring sports sometimes get a bad rap, because they don't have that sort of marquee kind of big event. They don't have band sports, what I like to call band sports. Yeah. Band sports are sports that you go to attend and you expect to have the band playing, like a football game, a basketball game. I've even been to volleyball games where they had the band playing. But you don't really have the band playing much in the spring. They're usually getting ready for, parades and stuff with it. And so it's a little bit lower key in the spring. It's really more about, and it's also more about participation. It's more about athletes getting out and competing and doing something than it is a spectator event in the spring. Because a lot of these games and events, they're held in the afternoon, like 3:30, 4 o'clock, when a lot of, people are still at work. They're really trying to find the window for the kids. And so, but there are a lot of fun events and always a lot of good storylines to follow in the spring. And I remember, encouraging, some reporters that we've worked with in the past, like, hey, why wouldn't you want to, when the weather is nice, when the weather is nice, why wouldn't you want to go out and watch a baseball game, a soccer game, a softball game, track meet, whatever, and get outside? Because we've been cooped inside the winter all winter. It's a little bit different when the weather is a little bit cold and rainy and windy and stormy and stuff. So, but I've always liked spring sports. It's a fun way to cap the year.
Yeah, it's a great way, not only, like you said, to kind of shake up the pace of things, but also to acknowledge that, like you said, more athletes compete in spring sports than at any other time in the academic year. We have more people out for track, baseball, softball, golf, tennis, soccer. And so from a coverage standpoint, it's really one of our biggest audiences when we talk about, getting out. And there might be only 50 people at the game, but the mass of athletes that are out participating makes it worth acknowledging.
Yeah, and all those spring sports, they have things that we appeal to us that we go out to cover, and they all have a little bit of a drawback. So we'll kind of talk about that as we kind of work through the spring sports and get to what we think is our favorite sports to cover, which is different than going out and just watching. But these are sports that we go out and we cover, and the things that we like about covering these sports.
Some of the sports that when the weather's nice are as fun to do and as fun to watch as anything are tennis and golf. And last year, I thought those sports were really compelling in Southwest Washington. You had Mountain View boys winning the state title at the 3A level, and then you had some tennis players, challenge for state titles as well. So, what are some of the storylines you think that could happen in golf and tennis?
In tennis, Camas they've always had good players. Haley Kirker for Camas is a 3-time All-Region tennis player of the year. In the 25 years that we've been picking All-Region athletes in different sports, in all the sports, I think we've only had 3 who were All-Region athletes of the year in their sports all 4 years. And actually, this year we could possibly double that. And Haley Kirker is one of them. She's a freshman, sophomore, and junior year. She's going to, I believe, head to the University of Utah to play tennis. And then they got a lot of other players on the Camas girls team program. And then the Columbia River doubles, Sydney Dreves has been in there, and they've been competing for state titles. So I think there's a lot of good competition going on. The reason why I would say tennis is maybe not the favorite sport to cover is so it's fun. It's good. It's good to go to a tennis match. I always like to, get inside the fences and shoot photos, tennis, but it's not really fan friendly. It's like even at the state tournament, you go to these facilities where they hold the state tournament, and it's not really. There's not a place to go and sit and watch.
Right. You're kind of up in a observation deck looking across.
Even at the 4A, they had this observation deck. They did have some bleachers set down on the courts for the singles and doubles finals, but you're kind of up and away, and you're kind of having to, sort of squeeze through and find. And even in a, regular season match, it's usually just, parents taking, lawn chairs out and just camping along the fence line. And also, But it's a huge participation sport, especially in the girls. I mean, a lot of the teams from around here have 50, 60, 70, 80 kids out for tennis, and it's just amazing about how these coaches can figure out how do they get all these kids on the court at one time. And so, like I said, it's a great participation sport. The other thing about tennis that is a little bit of a drawback is a lot of sports have like invitational tournaments during the regular season in which all the athletes from Clark County and Southwest Washington will get together and have a tournament, like the Clark County Wrestling Championships, or there's different track and field meets that bring a lot of people together, the Bay Runnery and cross country. They don't really have that in tennis. So they used to have that. Mountain used to put it on a couple of years back, but they don't really do that. So we never have an event where we kind of have all the best tennis players on the court at one time. And so there's a big disparity between some of the top players in the area and then those who are on, number 2 singles and number 3 doubles and stuff. And so, it's a lot of times when you have league duels, there's a lot of 6-love matches out there. And so it'd be really cool if we can kind of get everyone in one spot. And I mentioned it to one of our tennis coaches in the fall, and he's like, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. We got to maybe see if we can work that out. So, it'd be kind of nice to have a showcase event for tennis.
Yeah. But what are you looking for in golf?
Girls golf, we've had some good players the last couple of years. Jay Greer at Union last year. I think Jacinda Lee was our player of the year. And so we're looking to see who's going to step up and be that next top player from the area in girls golf. And I think there are some younger players who are coming in and ready to take that mantle. I always feel bad for the girls golf season, because in the boys season in the fall is very short. It's like the first match will start like the first week in September, sometimes maybe in the last couple of days of August, but then they're pretty much done by the middle of October. It's like a 6-week season, and then
they come back for state.
They come back for state, and so the bigger schools by district, and then state. The girls, they come in, they have their first practice like in late February, and their first matches in the middle of March, and it can be a very dreary and cold experience. And, they're playing on soggy greens with cups that are filled with water. And I always feel bad for them. It is a longer season for them, because they'll go from mid-March till late May. But sometimes trying to find good days. If it's a good day, and there's I love going out and covering golf.
Yeah.
And I always like, sometimes I'll go out to a golf match or a tournament, and somebody will say, hey, do you want a golf cart to drive around? And it's like, no, if the kids are walking, then I'm walking. I get to walk around and shoot photos and kind of watch them play, because I haven't played in a while, but I used to play, and I always like to kind of watch and see what they do and how they play the course, and they're so much better than I am. But the caveat flip side of that is when it's not.
Well, legendary sports writer John Feinstein, rest in peace, had that famous book, Good Walk Spoiled, talking about professional golf. And if you don't worry about your score and you're just out there walking around following the golfers around some of these courses, it's a good walk unspoiled.
The other thing about girls golf, and it's different from boys. In boys they play stroke play for team scores. So basically everyone goes and they play 9 holes. And the top 4 or 5 count, and whoever's got the lowest team score wins. But in girls, they play a modified Stableford system, which is you get points based on your score. Like if you get an eagle, you get so many points, a birdie, so many points, a par, so many points, and on down the line. And the reason why they do that is that, so again, sometimes the conditions are really miserable, and sometimes you have a lot of players who are first-time golfers, and so they want to be able to you don't want to have kids out there hitting the ball 12, 13, 14 times to get the ball in the hole. And so basically, once you reach a point where you can't score in that hole, then you pick up your ball and you move on to the next hole. The bad part about that is sometimes when you look at results from a girls' match and you see, hey, this person scored 17 points. We have really no idea what that means.
Yeah.
So we always try to encourage the golf coaches when they send in results, like for the medalist, the top placer, can you give us the score in relation to par? Because that would at least give us, a ballpark idea. It's like, oh, this person shot, 37 or 38 or something like that. 2 over or par or even par or whatever, other than just some number like 22 or 17 or 15 that really doesn't have a whole lot of meaning. Sometimes they can't, because even the best players will sometimes pick up their ball from time to time. But that's always a struggle for me. When I like, somebody goes, hey, somebody was the medalist and they scored 17 points, and I have no idea exactly what that means.
All right. And another sport that I think when it's done right can be one of my favorite sports to cover is track and field. When a meet is crisply run, when you go into the meet and you have a few athletes that are in the hunt for personal bests or school records or multiple year titles. Track can be an amazing sport to cover. If you just show up at one of these big invitationals and you're like, I'm just going to try to take it all in and see what's going on, good luck, because some of those meets can last a long time. But thankfully, this year especially, I think we have a crop of really solid athletes that are going to keep us entertained all spring.
Yeah, track and field for us, we've got a lot of track and field people on the Columbian staff. You ran track and field in high school and college, and I did too, and Meg Walknick competed in track and field high school and college. So we're track people. Yeah. So we kind of enjoy going out to a meet. But yeah, that's the thing that's great about a track meet, especially when you're covering it, is the drawback. It's like there's so much happening. I remember one of our reporters talking about, it's like, I don't really like going to track because there's just so much going on. I don't know where I'm supposed to be and where I'm supposed to be looking at. I feel like I'm missing more than I'm watching.
Yeah.
And especially if you're like at a district meet, like I've been to the district meet at McKenzie Stadium, where you got the track happening, and then you've got some like the javelin, the discus on the field. Pole vaults down on one end, and then the long jump and triple jumps are up top.
Yep.
And then last year they did the shot put over at Evergreen. Mm-hmm. So you're like going, oh, and we had some really good boys shot putters, and so I was like running up there and then coming back to the track, and again, yeah, especially if an early season invite, I've been out like to the Battleground, the Tiger Relay early in the season. Sometimes it's even hard to figure out who you have like 12 heats of the 110 meter hurdles, and you're like going, well, who's in all of these? Because they don't have like uniform or bib numbers to tell you who's in it, and sometimes then you don't have a program to tell you who's in all of these events. So
they show up, they've grown 3 inches, they have a different haircut, they're wearing a hoodie because it's cold.
Yeah.
And
if you're at a field event, it's good to make friends with the clerk.
Yes.
It's like who's up now? It's like, oh, so and so's up that, and then after that, someone is in the hole, and you go, okay, cool. Now I know I'm going to take a photo. I'm going to make sure I know who is competing. But again, I think, especially when you head down to the postseason, you're seeing these kids sort of at their peak, and you really start to appreciate their athletic ability and the competitive nature that they go at. It's a fun meet when you have a plan, you know what you're looking for, and you kind of look at your schedule and you kind of figure out, okay, I'm going to go here and then here and then here and then here and then here. You can really find a lot of great stories.
Well, and some of the athletes we're going to be seeing. You got Chase McGee, the excellent pole vaulter at Camas, who's coming off a standout football season, looking for another state title in the pole vault. You also have Josiah Lannis, another football player who was a state champion in the triple jump at Evergreen last year. A little bit of a bummer that we don't have our great shot put rivalry. Will Foster versus Juan Pasillas Stanton. Will Foster is back in contention for a state title for Prairie. Juan Pasillas Stanton is a football signee for Portland State. He's going to concentrate on that sport. But then also you have a couple of Columbia River kids that'll be in the running for state titles, and that's Revek Banfield, our returning all-region boys track and field athlete of the year, a phenomenal sprinter who is, I'm sure, going to get a lot of attention as he continues to go through his track and field career. And then Jacob McManus, the distance runner, who I think could be in the running for to contend for state titles in the 3200 and the 1600 after inking his letter of intent to Santa Clara.
Yeah, and then we also have a lot of young athletes who are freshmen or sophomores who kind of broke in and were talented multi-event people who are going to grow and blossom. The Daphne Evanson and Elisa Marshall duels in the 800s are always fun to watch. And so, just a lot of good storylines heading into this track and field season.
Well, out of our all-region girls track and field team last year, there were only 2 seniors on that team. So you've got, I think Paris Ackerman for Hudson's Bay is going to be back. You've got Gabriella Thompson, who was a state podium finisher in multiple events. Like you said, Daphne Evanson, Elisa Marshall. And I think it's going to be one of those where, as every spring, you're going to see who knocks, a bunch of time off their personal best, who adds 10 feet to their discus throw or their triple jump, and you always kind of have to wait and see.
Yeah, and then you have like an athlete like Leilani Mays of Union, a hurdler, who had a great freshman year, and then she gets to the district meet, and in warm-ups, I think for the 100-meter hurdles, they're just going over the flights, working on their warm-ups right before a race, and somebody in the lane next to her clipped the hurdle, and it kind of fell into her lane as Leilani is going over, and she trips over and goes down, and she comes back and she ran the race and won it, but was clearly not well, and as it turned out, she didn't run the other events and then she didn't run it by district next year, so she didn't get to go to state, so sort of a heartbreaking end to the season on just a fluke thing, and so it's kind of a chance for her, see what she can do fully healthy.
Yeah. Let's move on to soccer. I know when you talk about covering soccer, I love pitchers duels in baseball. I love pitchers duels in softball. I actually like low scoring football games where every touchdown counts. So I love soccer for that. Also where it could be 1 or 2 goals that decides a game. The frustrating part of it is I really hope my camera's running when that goal happens, because I try to get a highlight video when I go out to a soccer match, and I'll get a great tackle, I'll get like a couple of corner kicks, but it always feels like if it's a 1-0 game and I don't have the goal, then it's like, well, what even is this worth?
Yeah, I remember going out to cover a game at Kiggins Bowl one time. I think it was like Skyview, and I can't even remember who Skyview was playing, like Heritage or something like that. And it ended up being a 1-0 match. And the goal was someone from midfield got the ball turned, and from like 40 yards out, noticed the goalie was way out and just lobbed this shot over the top for the only goal. And I'm not video recording. I'm not having my video out for some ball to midfield. You kind of relax a little bit, and he hits this ball, and you kind of go,
oh no.
It ends up being the only shot. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but whenever I cover soccer and I'm shooting video or I've got the camera out, I'm getting in my steps. Mm-hmm. So it's like you're working up and down the sideline and trying to get into the right position. And I think a couple of years ago, our colleague Meg Wachnick, she actually broke her finger or dislocated her finger because she was on the sideline and the ball came bounding, and she went up to stop it.
Those are coming harder than you think.
So it's you kind of in the mix there, and you're on the sidelines. But I think it's when you're shooting photos of a soccer match, sometimes you get the 2 players coming for a header, or they're going at it, or a good hard tackle. And we've got some really good boys soccer teams over the last couple of years. 2 years ago, I went up to up to Renton for the state finals. That's when the Columbia River won their state championship, and Seton Catholic boys made it to the Final Four at the 1A for the first time. So, River is always going to have a good program. Camas and Union this year, I think they're going to have a great rivalry. I think Skyview also could be very good. And then there are programs, that are looking to, programs like Heritage and Fort now down at the Trico. I think there's just a lot of good soccer teams that can make some noise, and looking forward to seeing them on the pitch and seeing what they can do this year.
Well, you said it. Every league's competitive. You talked about Camas. They bring back an all-region player in Cooper Schneider, and then Union, Kanan Moore, an all-region player, is back. And so Camas and Union get to renew their rivalry. But of the 2As, River typically has been the team to beat. But in the first match of the season, Ari Long put them on notice by knocking off the Rapids for the first time. I know our friend up there in Cowlitz County, Jordy Nelson, was hitting the streets asking people when the last time Ari Long beat Columbia River in boys soccer was, and people were like, I don't know, before I was here.
Yeah, that was kind of an odd thing in that it was like the first match of the year,
Yeah,
like there was like the Tuesday.
They just go right into it.
It was like the first possible time they could play a match, and then they jumped in and played a league match right out the bat, and so. That's going to be something to watch later on when the Lumberjacks and the Rapids get together, and they're going to be second time of league play back down here in Vancouver. Could be a really cool match to circle on the calendar to look for.
Well, even at the 1As, you got Columbia White Salmon and Seton, which split the Trico League title last year. I don't think either of those teams are going away.
No, and Kingsway has also had a good program as well over the last couple of years. So. I think there's going to be a lot of really good competitive matches coming through this year in all of our leagues. And then 3A, Evergreen, Mountain View, Prairie have always been really good, and then Heritage has had a good, solid couple teams the last couple of years. It's a really good top to bottom soccer all over Southwest Washington.
All right, we'll move on to now when it's played well. My favorite sport to cover, and I say when it's played well because I love me a fast, crisp, well-pitched, well-defensed, maybe 2-1 softball game. When softball is played at its highest level, I think there's nothing more exciting. The bases are closer. There's a lot of bang-bang plays. If you get a dominant pitcher, it's not like you have to worry about the bullpen. You kind of know, like, okay, they've got their ace in the circle, and so it's going to be, 1A versus 1A when you have two high-quality pitchers going at it. So when it's played well, and I say when it's played well because when it's not, and this goes for baseball too, there's nothing more tedious than a long, drawn-out, walk-filled, error-filled game of softball or baseball. But I think in a way that makes me appreciate, especially softball, when it's played well, how good and how exciting it can be.
Yeah, I think the thing I like about softball that's different from baseball, again, you said like it's a smaller field, and so you're kind of a little bit closer to the action. But when I'm going to cover a softball game and I have the camera out, I will step inside the fence line and go up, past the dugout. I'm on the field and I'm close and I can shoot, and I can't do that in baseball. Right. I don't even know if I'm allowed to do that in baseball, but even if I were allowed to do it in baseball, I don't like going inside the fence for baseball,
I did that once, and I nearly got my head taken off.
Yeah. I was out at Skyview for a baseball game, and they have lower fences beyond the dugout, so you can get sort of close. But even that, you have to be aware. If you're on the first base side and there's a right-hand batter, you got to be aware that they might be coming to you. And so you're like that with softball too. But I got the chance last year to go to the state tournament in Richland and with Skyview, and then Seton Catholic also was there, and Battleground as well. It was the first day, the Friday was a long 12-hour day of softball, but it was fun. It was, like I said, I think like you said, if you, at that level, you're seeing the best teams, the good teams, the teams that can pitchers who can throw strikes, and the defense that can, make the plays in the field, and batters who can make contact. And, it was just a really good, exciting brand to play softball, and you've been the softball guy in years past.
Yeah, and this year I think it's just incredibly a very interesting year. And if Skyview's going to do it and win a state title, it has to be this year. It has to be this class. You mentioned the possibility of Haley Kirker being a 4-time All-Region athlete. That is also the case with Maddie Milhorn, the Oregon signee, who is a dominant pitcher and also a great hitter for Skyview. As long as Skyview has had Maddie Milhorn, they have been in the running for a state title, but just because of an injury or a bad break break or a bad inning. It hasn't happened for them, but it's not only Maddie, it's that whole senior class. I mean, you're talking about Addie Harmier, you're talking about Kyla Lester, Lainey Phillips, Layla Royal, Avery Henderson, and then also some great juniors, whether it's the Figueroa sisters or Taylor Lees. I mean, Skyview is just so deep, and as long as you have Maddie Milhorn in the circle, you're going to have a chance to beat anybody.
Yeah, when we went to the state tournament last year, that's what we were there. We thought Skyview was going to make a run, and then they had a heartbreaking loss in the quarterfinals. But then they came back and they went through the loser out brackets to claim third place. And so I think they're coming in this year like,
this is our time. We've got to make it happen.
We've come up short the past years for one reason or another, and so this year we've got to put it all together. And I think the 4A Greater St. Helens League for softball has been really good with Battleground and Union, and I think Camas is improving.
Better, yeah.
So I think they're going to have a lot of really good games. The funny thing about the state softball tournament last year, we went there because we were figuring we were going to focus in on Skyview, and it turns out the team that we had playing in the state championship game was Seton Catholic.
Yeah.
and they had to play a Thursday game because I think a 12-team bracket at 1A, so they had to play a Thursday game, and there wasn't any way I could get to the Tri-Cities on Thursday. And I was like, well, Seton's going to have to win their way into coverage, and they got to win Thursday, and then I'll be there Friday. Well, they got there Friday, they won the quarterfinal, and then they got Saturday morning, they won the semifinals, and they went to the state championship game. So, and Seton Catholic's going to have. They lost a couple key seniors from that team last year, but they have a lot coming back, and they've got the experience coming back of making a deep state run. So.
Yeah, Trico League MVP Kingsley Williams is back, and and so like you said, it's you I think find out a lot about yourself when you get to the state tournament and do well, and then you bring that extra air of confidence. And so I expect that from Seton this year.
Yeah, and then at the 2A Greater St. Helens League, last year was kind of an off year for the 2A. The 2A league, they went up to the districts and didn't. The teams in general just didn't perform very well. But historically, they've had a lot of depth and good teams. Ridgefield, Mark Morris, Columbia River,
Woodland even. Woodland's had they've got a lot of players that have played varsity for 2 years, if not longer, and they've been hitting the cover off the ball early in the season.
So that's you always want to know that the 2A is going to be competitive and have the potential to produce a quality team making a run at state. And then the 3A, Greater St. Helens League, has had teams that have pushed through and had some state experience and made a little noise. Prairie, Evergreen's been in there, Heritage has been in there. So I just kind of all over Southwest Washington, just a lot of good softball to it.
All right. And let's end with baseball. And again, baseball, I view it in a lot of the same ways as softball. When it's played well and you have, some of the acrobatic plays being made on defense and some of the power, and it seems like every year there's a guy that, attracts a half a dozen pro scouts when he's pitching or when he steps into the batter's box. And so baseball in Southwest Washington, it's always been fun. Obviously, Columbia River, longtime coach Stephen Donahue, they got him that first state championship ring last year. And I just thought that was a very fun story to watch up in Bellingham. But then also one of the fun things about baseball recently in Southwest Washington is how good the 4A Greater St. Helens League has been year after year, whether it's Camas, Battleground. Battleground, of course, returns All-Region Player of the Year, James Gill III, and Camas just seems to always reload. And then Skyview. You saw Skyview, they're always going to be competitive.
Yeah, and Union's got a good program as well. So you always got to know a baseball, and the 4A is again going to be competitive and good. Again, I think like you said, when it's played well, and also when the weather is good,
yes.
It's always fun to go and hang out at a baseball game, and it's a little bit different than how we used to cover it. But 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you'd have a photographer that would bring one of our staff photographers would shoot photos, and you just kind of even bring your own chair, just find a spot and have a scorer's book and just kind of sit and relax. And now it's kind of like we're shooting video and we're shooting photos and you're trying to, there are a couple of places, like the Rourke up at Richfield. They've got the mesh that you can shoot photos right on through, so you don't have to worry about getting onto the field or into the dugout or whatever. Propstra also has a mesh that you can kind of shoot through, and you're a little bit up. You get a little bit different perspective. I know years we used to cover games at Propstra from that press box that's behind home plate, and balls will hit the plexiglass and rattle and make a lot of noise. Never really liked covering games from down there. Always liked, if the weather was good, like to be up top. But some of the other fields, you got to be shoot through a chain link fence, and unless you can, kind of get to the coach and say, hey, can I hang out in the dugout, or maybe can I go in the bullpen and kind of be over there. But again, a lot of good baseball this weekend. There's going to be a lot of baseball. Hopefully the weather holds out. They're going to have a big tournament coming up at different sites. At the Rourke up in Richfield, they're going to have an 8-team 2A tournament. It's all 2A teams. A lot of teams that we probably expect to see playing deep into May. They're going to play 8-team Thursday, Friday, Saturday up at the Rourke. And then there's going to be 4-team pod brackets at Mountain View, at Union, and at Heritage on Friday and on Saturday. The fields, they're turf fields, so if they can avoid heavy, steady rain, they can try to squeeze these games in. The organizer, I talked to Jason Castro, former coach at Heritage, and he's now working for Evergreen Public Schools as an assistant athletic director for the district. And he was like, we're really hoping we can get some good weather. And it's free, and you can go out to any of those games over the weekend and a chance to see some really good baseball. Hopefully the weather holds out, and I think it's going to be, if it ends up being really bad this weekend, because I think the weather early next week is supposed to be very nice. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be up to 70 degrees, but a lot of good teams in the area to go see. This week, La Center and Seton Catholic are playing a couple games this week. Seton Catholic is a team that lost in the state quarterfinals last year to a team that had a pitcher who I think went on to the University of Washington, which is really hard when you're a 1A team to face an arm like that. And Colton Gesser was trying to match him pitch for pitch, end up losing 1-0. But they've got pretty much their entire roster back from last year. And even La Center still has a lot of good players coming back.
All-region player Justin Fuller kind of leads that charge.
So, the 1A's got some good talented teams, and then of course the 2A, you got the defending 2A state champions in Columbia River, and that the Longview teams are going to be good, and Ridgefield's going to be good, and so and then of course we mentioned the 4A, and so just a lot of good baseball all over the county here, and I think it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, so if the weather's nice and you got nothing to do, go out. Like you said, a lot of the games are free, so check out a softball game, check out a baseball game, check out these kids that are representing their schools and their communities, and soak up some sun if it ever comes. Yeah. All right. Be sure to tune in next week, like I said, for the reveal of the all-region boys and girls basketball team. But we can't wait to get into spring. We're probably going to take a break during spring break from this show, but we'll be back ready to go in April. So we will see you then.